Okay, now we're starting. Today we're starting with the moon. We're dealing with the aspects. So it's often called the kingdom of aspects because there's so many different aspects to sort of regulate and look at. What we're doing is we're simplifying to see the main factors and how they work. Now, even though we can work with the phases and get deeper meaning out of each aspect, we're not doing it here. It's too much information. We're just going to look to see how much stress, what happens when there's a stressful relationship or a non-stressful relationship between the two planets. Essentially, every planet always, the moon, the sun, and each planet always has an aspect. There's always a connection between each other, regardless of whether there's a traditional aspect or not. Every degree has a relationship to each other. I mean, your memory and your mind are connected to each other. They just are. Where the division between what memory is and what thinking is, that's harder line to define. But there's interrelationships between each level of consciousness in our life. So in astrology, generally, a lot of times you'll see they'll relate the moon to objects, and then the objects will have the stress from the planets between, like each planet to each planet is object to object, and it can affect parts of the body, and it's very practically looked at like that. We can do it. I don't find it's always true because each planet can manifest on 1,000 different frequencies. Like there's of all the memories you can have, what are you feeling? What are you remembering? Of all the feelings you have, all the senses of security or lack of security or insecurity, all the homes you could be, all the places you're sleeping, all the habits you could have. Like an aspect can come out. If you're looking at a thing, an aspect can come out. It's going to affect usually one of the things, not all of the things. It'll hit one thing, your stomach. It hits your stomach. It hits your mom. It hits you. But usually you're sifting through. It's one of this whole spectrum of things. Or it may be one of those spectrum of things. This is not the way we're working it to freedom and responsibility in the signs, to subjective and objectivity in the houses. Now we see whether it's easy or difficult, what stress comes in. Now, stress, while stressful and challenging, is not a bad thing. We then tend to think, oh, that's a bad aspect, or that's a difficult aspect, this is a bad thing. But it's not really a bad thing. Stress is the energy it gets you to get up and go make something happen. Oh, I have to take care of this. Oh, I got to take care of this. The kid's screaming, I got to go do this. Like, it's that energy. It's not easy. You don't wish it on anybody. You do it and you get things accomplished with stress. When there's not stress, it's easier. It's lazier. It sits there. It's not so demanding. But it can get really lazy. Why bother getting up? Why do that? Let's just let it be. Like, it can be the non-stressful aspects. There's still a relationship. They're just not under pressure to do something. And how much would we do if we didn't have a little pressure or we didn't feel it was needed to be done? So it's an interesting thing because we look at this, we see the symbols of the sun, moon, we see the images of the moon, we see these images, we see the patterns in the chart. It's all like a symbol for the symbol-minded. But really trying to find the reality or the frequencies or the functions of it. We've seen how the function of each planet is colored by the sign it's in or the season of the year it's in. We've seen how that function is projected into life or is a factor that reacts, is sensitive to responding to environments. How we put things out, how we take things in on that frequency. Now we're just seeing how easy or difficult it is and what kind of stress is involved in it. So we can say stress, okay, but there's a different type of stress or several different types of stress, but a different specific type of stress for each planet. So you have the moon in their chart. But you got all the other planets and the sun, they're all bringing the all potential stress factors that are there. So just because they're there, it doesn't mean they're always picking on the moon. But when you're born, certain ones will. So only person who really wrote aspects like this would be Charles Carter, British astrologer. And he wrote the conjunctions, the stressful, and the easy, like the non-stressful. And I just simplified it's stressful or it's not. So a conjunction I consider stressful because it's pushing you to do things. Two energies are together. When two people sleep together, things are happening. It's not, well, maybe some people are just sleeping, but usually when you're together, you're doing things and there's energy involved. And you're either up to it or you're not. You make the most of it or you don't. Or you go next day, you're thinking, oh, I should have done that, or I wished I'd done that, or I'm glad I did this, I'm glad I did that. But really, the moons are memories. Everything that's ever happened before us to this moment, everything, anything before right now is a memory. It's no longer a reality. Right now, and mystery, without thoughts, without anything, and the aliveness in this moment is real. Memories are chains we drag along us that we hit people with that meet us. If you meet me, you got to know I lived in India, or you got to know I went through this, or my family was like this, or my mom was like this, or my dad was like this, or I've been through this. I'm going to have to put some time in listening to your memories. Whether I like them or not, I'm going to listen to them. It's considered being sympathetic or empathetic, but we trade off our memories, our past. Oh, you came from here? Oh, I came from here. Oh, you lived in that town? I lived there. Oh, you mean we were in the same place? All these things bring a sense of, when we have that, we have a sense of, I don't know if you'd call it security, just affinity. We have similar memories, or it's a sense of you came from there, I came from there, and I have a sense of your past and your life. You have a sense of mine. So we're sort of in familiar territory, and we can sympathize with each other. Or we come from totally different places and we don't sympathize at all. But the idea of first, let's see. Traditionally, you say the moon is the stomach and the breasts. Really, it's your sympathy link. It's your mother. You got the nourishment from your mother. You need to fill your stomach from the milk to get here, to be here. So on a gross level, it is that. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you can follow the moon. So if you took it as the breast and the stomach, you know, we're all born here, and 12, 13 years old girls start developing breasts and becoming the mother, and 12, 13 boys start looking and wanting to be mothered, wanting to get close to those things, and patterns and behavior patterns start building up. So these are moon patterns. So the first month of our life, most of our basic patterns, our attitude patterns are already set. And then they crystallize more over the next 2 or 3 months. But then we'll evolve them in there. But they're kind of in there, whether you're afraid of the dark, whether your mother liked feeding you, or you liked to be fed, or you didn't, or you were secure or not secure. All of these things, regular habits, regular sleeping, whatever, all these things are set in that first month of our life. And then we repeat them and we evolve them a little bit, or just keep going around on them. So as they go around and repeat, we begin to recognize repeated functions, repeated factors. Time to eat, time to go to bed, time to get up, time to do this. So our habit patterns become, the moon represents our habit patterns. Our habits, even just our habits, our good habits and our bad habits is represented in the moon. And our good habits and bad habits today are creating memories for tomorrow. Every day we're just shoveling 24 hours of experiences into memories. We're filling it up. And half of the memory, maybe 90% of memory, it's probably not the best idea to make those if we had a choice. So if we got a lot of dark energy and bad memories, it's going to make us sick. It's going to affect our health. If we have, but the magic of astrology and of the moon, of life, is that every day, if you put a little bit more light and a little more positivity in your daily habits, you're creating a little more positive memory for tomorrow. And if you do that every day, you could heal most problems within a month. But the moon is a very unreliable function. It fluctuates. It goes from new moon to full moon, but just even memory, it's a very unreliable function. What were you doing 2 days and 3 hours ago? What were you doing yesterday? If you're older like me, what was I doing 5 minutes ago? Like just what you just what? How much do you recall now when you're mad, when you're upset? It's easy to remember all the bad things that happen to you. When we're happy, we're busy being happy, and we usually don't remember the happy times. So the whole idea of nutrition, the quality of what you're eating, your habit patterns, your ability to digest, your ability to live securely, to feel secure, this is your moon. So this is a huge dimension of life. If we haven't eaten right, if we haven't had a good night's sleep, we're not. Then you get Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're not going to think right. You're not going to be able to evaluate right. You're not going to be confident. You're not going to be strong. You're not going to be able to get much done successfully. You're going to have difficulties in your life putting things out. And like all the outer planets, all the outer relationships can become, if the moon itself isn't working well. Like no matter where your chart is, no matter whether it's got 10 aspects or none aspects, you still have to use the moon in the sign it's in and evolve the quality of the sign the moon's in to make it work better. And then you have to express it in better and better ways in the houses it's in. You can ignore the aspects. That's the work, to make your moon divine. To elevate your consciousness, to bring in the positive attitude that is your moon attitude and make the best of it, and to put that attitude down into your circumstances where you feel you need security, rather than, I can't live up to that, I'll never do that, rather than letting it become negative. So the signs in the houses are your healing gauges. It's not, the aspects don't define things. It really, when you're talking to someone, you don't even need to use the aspects, but the aspects give the astrologer really edge to how some of the shows. But there's a tendency to define the person by the aspects, which is really wrong. To judge when you got that, it's always going to be messed up. Mistake. Someone with the worst aspects can have the best chart because when they've dealt with it properly, they just shine in their spirit. And if they don't deal with it, then it becomes that. But you almost have to, you can't look at a chart and see if someone's good or bad. Look at a planet, see difficult aspects, and know if that person's a murderer or a saint. It could be either. You see there's a tendency to these things, and you have to observe how that person functions and uses it. As you start observing someone's habits, and you notice there's a tendency to be sloppy, or there's a tendency to be hyper, or to worry too much, and you observe, and then you notice that they're actually doing that, it's confirming, well, if that's so, then you can make further conclusions. You can't just say, because that's there, you got this all the time, you're ruined. It doesn't work like that. Whatever you have is normal for you.